Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday counter breaking points. What are we going to call it, Ryan? We'll just say
Counter
virtual bro
break?
show, counter break. It's
Yeah.
point break. Yeah, we'll go with that. It's the
Wait,
bro
wait.
show
Here's the
virtually
pound.
here.
Yeah.
Yes, here's the pound. There we go. All right, it works out. I like it. People can feel the energy and the love
Yes.
through the screen. So Ryan and I coming off of a hot State of the Union joint address to Congress by President Donald Trump, his fifth while occupying the Oval Office, longest one in the history books, an hour and 40 minutes long, and we felt every second of that, Ryan, didn't we?
My
After,
my eyes were heavy when he started,
oh
and
man,
they did not get any lighter by the end.
Whew.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
going
and
live.
still Democrats won't applaud for him, and it's so sad. It's
Yeah.
so sad.
That's right. Maybe they weren't applauding because they were tired.
Yeah, they're tired.
The median age in there is 70 years old. I was exhausted when we were
Yeah.
going live at 11,
If
so I can't even imagine being my freaking grandfather having to sit through
if
all of that.
yeah, if people missed it, there was this riff that he did where he was just, I've done this 5 times. I've done such
Yep.
amazing things, and it's just so sad that the Democrats won't clap for me.
It's
It's so
tragic.
sad.
Yeah.
It's real
It's tragic.
tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I saw
Yeah.
somebody saying yesterday, they were like, "Man, this is wild. Half the audience isn't clapping." And I was like, "Yeah, it's the State of the Union."
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's called the
Like,
State of the Union.
unfortunately, Ryan and I are in the business where we cover every single one of these things. People pay attention. We're not really sure why, but let's go ahead and start with the breaking news that has come out as of this morning. This is absolutely the most important thing now so far, and that is, let's see, we're going to go ahead and put it up here on the screen, a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the lower court order forcing USAID and the State Department to immediately pay $2 billion owed to contractors for work that they have already performed. Justices Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh in the dissent, meaning that two of the conservative justices, the Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, joining the majority. So, what they say here, as you could see in terms of the text, the U.S. District Court entering a temporary restraining order, enjoining the government from enforcing directives, pausing disbursements of foreign development assistance fund. They say the application is denied. So, Ryan, what do you make of this Supreme Court decision? I actually said here on the show, I was like, you should always remember there are wild cards in terms of
Mhm.
jurisprudence. People like Amy Coney Barrett, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Roberts. Roberts cares about the legitimacy of the court. Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch, they're wild cards in that they're a little bit more libertarian. Same with Clarence Thomas. And you never really quite know which direction that they're going to go. But nonetheless, I mean, it's significant because they deny the government saying that they want to put a pause on foreign aid spending of approximately $2 billion out the door, affirming effectively the government's, affirming effectively not only the Constitution as it lays out explicitly in terms of Congress's right for the power of the purse, but also that the government must follow through on that,
Yeah.
regardless of
It's called
whatever
executive. Right.
exactly whatever executive action that they might put into place. So it's an important legal theory the Trump administration was trying to test, and it was struck down by 5-4.
Right. The founders choosing the term executive is important. Like they execute the laws that are passed by the people's house and the Senate. Like that it's not a new body that deliberates on behalf of the people. It is their job is to faithfully execute the laws. And USAID is a separate question. They do, in my opinion, a lot of important and life-saving work. They also use that important and life-saving work as a cover for a lot of the soft power and sometimes even harder power, moves on behalf of a destructive American empire. So, not
Mhm.
here to necessarily defend everything USAID is doing, but on this narrow point, they are looking at, as you said, contracts where the work has already been done. This feels pretty basic. Like Congress passed a law saying, here's amount of money to do this thing. The executive then hired somebody to carry out that function, whatever they did. They distributed, food in Nairobi. And now they sent the invoice for the thing that they were told to do by this contract, and the executive says, actually, we're not going to do that. Like, it's pretty hard to see how you can justify that. It's one thing if you say, okay, we don't want to do this in the future. Okay, have that fight. They already did it. And so you got to pay them, is basically what the Supreme Court is saying. And for a bunch of my liberal friends who have worried for many years that Trump is going to become a dictator, one of the things that I've always reminded them is that the Supreme Court doesn't have any interest in Trump becoming a dictator.
Yeah.
Like they jealously guard their own power.
Of course.
I think
from the very beginning of the Supreme Court and the invention
exactly
of judicial review.
They seized power in the very beginning.
See, now you and I are cooking, Ryan. Now we're talking about invented powers of the Supreme Court.
Yeah. But they jealously guard those invented powers.
You're very right. I did want to put up Justice Alito's dissent, which was joined on. It says that today the power grab is blistering. He blasts the court for hubris, self-aggrandizement, and what he calls a stunning and extreme refusal by the Supreme Court to obey the law and its own precedents. Justice Alito, dissenting, a federal court has many tools to address a party's supposed nonfeasance. Self-aggrandizement of its jurisdiction is not one of them. I would chart a different path than the court does today, so I must respectfully dissent. I guess, so I read this. This is a lot of legality and stuff going on here. Alito did not seem to disagree with the pretense of the order. It was more about the action of ordering the immediate disbursement of the funds from USAID. What he was saying is that there's an extraordinary amount of other options that we could have granted the government instead of deciding to do this. Now, I think what is probably happening, and I guess you could say this too, is that the court is coming out hot, at least those who disagree on this, and not trying to give any wiggle room or benefit of the doubt for the future to set a precedent for some of the other future courts. Now, it's important to note, and that's something that the legal analyst Kyle Cheney, who we had up there, he's like, some of this will still get litigated in district court in terms of the timeline, the feasibility to turn this on. But the argument about whether they can turn it off entirely is the one that's effectively been quashed here at the court today.
Right, and that's why you've seen, this is classic Trump. They came in with an axe and they just swung it and just hit everything, and then they're like, oh, by the way, hey, you can't do that. That's illegal. So they started sending notes to every single contractor saying, we have individually decided that your particular contract, it's a form letter, but they can tell the court that this is an individual decision that the executive made. And so while it might be true that the executive has to broadly follow, the congressional mandates, they all obviously have some discretion within that mandate of how they carry out that, as long as they're carrying it out faithfully. And so they tried to do an end run around it by kind of reorganizing it, from the back end, saying, well, this particular contract, we're not against in general doing things, but specifically this one we're shutting down. And this is the court coming in and now going one by one and being like, well, no, this $2 billion, you have to spend it, which is kind of remarkable. Like, you can't. Obviously, they're going through a crisis, and this is a fight, and they're going to work this out. But you couldn't actually govern this way. Congress passing laws, and then the executive shutting everything down, and then the Supreme Court individually signing off on various contracts that USAID has cut with different contractors. That's obviously unsustainable.
Right, yeah, you're talking just in terms of the process. So it does make sense.
It's absurd, yeah.
Right, especially if you're thinking Justice Barrett and Roberts. They're like, okay, we're just going to nip this in the bud now. So we'll see what the fallout is, but it's definitely the most significant Supreme Court decision yet of the second Trump administration.
Right, it shows they're going to be players here.
That's right. And also, it's going to be we have not yet heard from the White House on this Supreme Court decision. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, will be taking the podium later today, so we might be hearing some of that. In terms of other breaking news, I know people may have wanted a tariff update. Unfortunately, Ryan are not able to offer us one right now. Right now, we're told that the White House will be having an afternoon press conference on the tariffs where Trump is expected to announce that at least some are going off, but it's still very, very unclear. In terms of the overall markets, let me see. where things stand as you and I are talking. S&P is basically flat. The Dow is flat. As of yesterday, the futures and all of that. I mean, yeah, the market is open right now, as you and I are saying. People are basically just in a
Mhm.
wait and hold position to see what Trump ends up deciding. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.